Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is July 16, 2023, and we are getting into the volume 139 of me answering your immigration related questions. As you can see, I have all your comments pulled up in front of me. As always, before beginning this video, I'm gonna mention I am not an immigration attorney. This is not a legal advice. All the information provided in these videos on this channel are directly from official government sources like USCIS and of course the Department of State with their visa bulletin. So let's start with the very first comment from Lord Griffin. Priority date is 7 November 2017, documentarily qualified, 6 July 2020, F2A category. Question is when I will get the interview date. Thank you. Lord Griffin, thank you very much for your question. So priority date November 2017, F2A category, I'm assuming in all chargeability area. Let's take a look at the visa bulletin and see what's going on for the F2A. I know there have been a huge update for the F2A on the visa bulletin for August 2023. If you haven't seen that video, make sure to check it out. And that goes for everyone who is, taking part in family reunification process. So we're gonna be looking at the graph A because Lord Griffin is already documentarily qualified. So the only thing they're waiting for is the availability of the immigrant visa and then schedule of the interview. So currently, as of right now, well, not exactly right now, because right now we're still in July, but for August 2023 visa bulletin, we are looking at October 2017, and Lord Griffin got the priority date in November. So October, November, so 1 month roughly, just one more month for the availability of the immigrant visa for you, Lord Griffin. And once it is available, once your priority date becomes current, which is supposed to be in just 1 month, then you are ready to expect that interview to be scheduled. A lot of times it does take some time for the interview to be scheduled because it's now the US Embassy that is scheduling the interview. A lot of times they cannot, not a lot of times, in all of the cases, they cannot let you know 30 days before the actual interview date. So most of the times you're waiting, 4, 5, 6 months. In my cases that I have been dealing with, it was almost always at least 6 months, and when I did for my parents, it was 9 months that they were waiting in the immediate relative category. So you still have some time to wait, but you really are close. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your comment because since we just seen the update for the F2A on the visa bulletin, a lot of people were surprised that F2A went back another 2-3 years, and some people thought it was a mistake, but your comment shows that there are people waiting since 2017 in F2A category, which is really sad to see. Hopefully it speeds up because F2A category, it's spouses and children under 21 of permanent residents, and I don't think spouses and children under 21. Honestly, nobody should be waiting that long, but especially spouses and children under 21, they shouldn't be separated from their parents for so long. So Lord Griffin, you're almost there. 1 more month for visa to become, for the priority date to become current, for immigrant visa to become available, and then you're just waiting for them to schedule the interview, depending on which country you're from. In some countries, US embassies, they're a little bit busier than others, so they take a little bit longer to schedule those interviews. But if you want, once your priority date becomes current, give it a couple of months, and then I always recommend reaching out to your US Embassy where you're going to be doing the interview and asking them if they can let you know when the interview was scheduled for. Sometimes they give that information, sometimes they don't, but it's a chance worth taking. Okay, moving further to the next comment from Emizium Kingsley 552. Thank you, sir. I want to ask a question about me and my 2 brothers. We are all F1 categories, priority date 5th I'm assuming January 2014, documentarily qualified July 2023, so just recently documentarily qualified. Congratulations, that's a huge step. Chargeability is Nigeria. We have been receiving 60 days notification without no interview letters. Please can you tell us what to do next? Then mine is F1 category, priority date 4th May 2015, documentarily qualified 2021, still waiting. Emizium, thank you very much for another comment. Really appreciate your comments as always. So congratulations to your brothers who were just recently documentarily qualified. Like I said, that's a huge step. They do have, unfortunately, some waiting to do. Let's take a look at and see roughly how much time is left. F1 category, so Nigeria, so it's going to be all chargeability area. So F1 right now is showing January 2015. And they are January 2014, so actually they are current already. They are definitely current on according to the visa bulletin. So 2014, yeah, they're definitely already a year as they're current. It's really weird that they're just now becoming documentarily qualified. So Emesium, I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question. If you can, let me know in a separate comment. I would really appreciate it. Were there any delays, any problems in the case, in the processing somewhere along the way, whether with USCIS or NVC? And when I say problems, I mean something like, you submit, for example, I-130 to USCIS. They accept it, and then they process it, and then there is something missing in the application package, so they send you a request for evidence. And then you send them the evidence that they requested, and then they review it, and then they say, okay, it's good. And same thing with NDC. You submit the documents to become documentarily qualified, they process it, and then they come back and say, oh, this is missing, or this is not correct, or something along those lines. Because whenever you have those problems, like I call it, it's not necessarily a problem, it's just a little bit of a hiccup, where it's kind of a back and forth between you and the government agency. When you do have those hiccups in your application process, your processing time stops. For example, USCIS, when they need something additional on the application and they send you a request for evidence, when they determine that there is something missing in the application, that application is now frozen. So for example, if the total processing time for the I-130, let's say in that service center, was 1 year, they received it, 3 months, 4 months, they reviewed it, they said, oh, additional evidence required. Those 3-4 months, when they determine that additional evidence requires, is now frozen on that 4 months mark. So they send you the request for evidence, which takes about a week to get to you. Then you collect all the evidence. Let's say within a week you send it back. Now it's 2 weeks. Get back to them 3 weeks. Now they take another couple of months to get to it, or maybe 2-3 months to review it. All of that time is not counting towards the total processing time. So it creates that extra time that a lot of times people, and I know it on my own example, because I had the same situation when I was working on getting my parents documentarily qualified. We actually had a delay of about 6 months back and forth, because the documents that I have submitted to NVC, at first they said that this is missing, and then they needed a translation for something that I didn't think they would need a translation for. So that created about 6 months of delay in just becoming documentarily qualified. So the reason why I'm asking you, obviously, is because for your brothers, it is showing that they are a year ahead, so their priority date should be already current as the whole year, since January, because right now it's showing January 2015 current priority date, and they're just now, as of July 2023, becoming documentarily qualified. So let me know, and I might be able to give you a little bit more insight on that. And then whenever it comes to you are in May 2015, so it seems like everything is good, and you were documentarily qualified in 2021, which now everything seems like it's going, according to its order, a little bit better. So you are looking at, if right now we're January 2015 for all chargeability for everyone in F1, you are in May 2015. So you're roughly looking at, like 4 months. January is first month, May is fifth month, roughly 4 more months for your priority date to become current. Once it becomes current, you are looking at the availability of the immigrant visa and just waiting for the interview to be scheduled. Whenever it comes to those 60-day notices now that you are getting from the U.S. Embassy, this is pretty generic. Once you're documentarily qualified and the case is transferred to the U.S. Embassy, depending on which U.S. Embassy it is, a lot of times so that people don't bother them and call them, like I always recommend doing. They send those notices basically saying, hey, we have your case, we remember that you have an interview, don't worry, your time has not come yet, 60 more days, 60 more days, 60 more. Most of the times it's 2-3 at least notices that you will get before the interview is scheduled, because like I said, in most cases, at least 6 months you are waiting for an interview to be scheduled. But again, give it another, couple months and give them a call and say, hey guys, my priority is current, my immigrant visa should already be available. I want to know what's going on, when is my interview scheduled for, and they might be able to tell you, they might not, but it's definitely worth a shot. So Emizium, thank you very much for your comment. As always, let's move on to the next one from IMNLTE2246. Does embassies usually open appointment calendar after visa bulletin? K1 visa. So yes, U.S. embassies, they definitely do depend on the visa bulletin for sure. I'm not sure what exactly you mean, the embassy's open appointment calendar after visa bulletin. If your priority date is current according to the visa bulletin, and K1 visa, you're dealing with a little bit of a different situation. You really are not working with the visa bulletin, because visa bulletin is for family preference categories, family reunification and employment based. So people waiting for also the DV lottery, which this is a whole separate conversation. But yes, embassies, they definitely do look at the visa bulletin, and a lot of times, if you're not current, if your priority date is not current on the visa bulletin, U.S. embassies, they say that, oh no, we can't give you the immigrant visa because it's not current yet. So yes, and also no, because after the new visa bulletin comes out, it's not necessarily that the embassies will have some appointments available or anything like this. Okay, so let me post the response here. We're gonna move on to the next question, comment from Frankie J.I. Hi, thank you for this very educated video. I have a question, please. My wife and kids have green cards, except me. I'm Canadian, but I cannot work in the US. Am I eligible to fill this form? And is it the only form I need to work in the US? Frankie, thank you very much for the question. That's a great question. So for the Canadian citizens, Canadian nationals, whenever it comes to employment in the United States of America, it's really the same thing. There is really no difference whenever specifically it comes to employment as for really anybody else, any foreign national, right? So it means that you do have to have some kind of eligibility criterion in order to be able to apply for that employment authorization, which means that you have to have either employment-based visa or some kind of immigration status that allows you to work in the United States of America. So number one thing I would recommend, if you are planning to live in the United States, I would, definitely recommend your wife submitting the I-130 petition, so that, you can start the process basically of family reunification, which, if you're here in the United States, is great, you're already together, that's awesome. But you definitely do want to have that immigration status and, eventually get your permanent residence as well to adjust your status. And you can definitely do that. It's going to take quite some time, so the sooner you start it, the better. Now, whenever it comes to working in the United States, that's going to be a little bit of a different conversation, because as of right now, I think really the best thing that you can do whenever it comes to employment is find an employer who is willing to sponsor you as a non-immigrant employee or immigrant employee, depending on most of the times they start with non-immigrant, and they sponsor the non-immigrant visa, and then eventually, once you work for a certain time for a company, then they say, what, this guy, we need him, we're not going to let him go, and they sponsor the immigrant visa now, so that you can stay in the country, do the adjustment of status based on the employment. So that would be probably the best case scenario for you. But if you don't have the employment-based visa at the moment, and if you don't have any kind of immigration status that allows you to work in the United States, then really the I-765 is a little bit early to file it. So I would concentrate on finding the employer that is willing to sponsor your employment-based visa, and also starting that family reunification process, so that, because it does take quite some time. And like I said in the beginning of this video, we just found out that for August visa bulletin issue, we're looking at now another almost 3 years in F2A category, which is what you will be dealing with. So it does take some time, so the sooner you start it, the better. Okay, let me post the response, and we're gonna move on to the next comment question from Jonathan Beko 9110. What's the waiting time? I'm assuming waiting time on this. So Jonathan, there's so many factors whenever it comes, because I-130, family reunification is very complicated, and there's a lot of steps involved. So first you have, your I-130 that you send with USCIS. While it's with USCIS, you can check the processing times on USCIS website. And I will show, because, everyone who's watching, somebody might benefit from this. So this is the official government website for US citizenship and immigration services. This is what the front page looks like, and you can find this link in the description below. So from this page, if you click on tools and then case status online and scroll down, wow, the site can be reached. Okay, so it can be reached now. Scroll down a little bit, you will see USCIS processing times. So from here, you can select form I-130, petition for alien relative. Category, now that will be a huge factor determining on how long I-130 will be processed with USCIS. So let's say permanent resident filing for a spouse or child under 21. We can, take Frankie as an example here and see how long it would take. And then depending on which service center it is in, California Center, Nebraska Center, Texas Center, there's also National Benefit Center. Sometimes the applications go there. Or you can do an average of all field offices, roughly 37 months, which is what, 3 years? More than 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. Yeah, 36 months will be 3 years, so a little bit more than 3 years. So that's a really long time already, just processing with USCIS. But once it is processed and approved by USCIS, the application package is then transferred to the NVC. Then you wait for the NVC portal to open up, depending on which category you are in, which family preference category you're in. If it's immediate relative, then the immigrant visa is already available, so the NVC is open right away, NVC portal. If you're in one of the family preference categories, then you're dealing with the visa bulletin, graph B, and you're waiting for your priority date to become current so that NVC portal opens up. Then you start the process of becoming documentarily qualified. Once you're documentarily qualified and your priority date is current and the immigrant visa is available, your application package is transferred to the US Embassy. And then they schedule the interview. Then you have to do the medical examination, do the interview. So you see there's a lot of steps involved. So if you want, let me know which chargeability area, which country you're applying from, family preference category, if it's immediate relative or if it's one of the family preference categories. And also priority date if you already have one. If you don't have one, obviously it's going to be sometime, as of right now, and I will be able to give you a little bit more, still rough, but a little bit better estimates. Okay, so let me post the response and we're gonna move on to the next one from Patel 988. Patel, thank you for a follow-up comment, I appreciate it. Our file 2007, if put in, how many times will it take for the file to open? F4 category, India. So now I know it's India chargeability area. Let's take a look at the visa bulletin. 2007 F4, India has a separate chargeability area, and as of right now it is September 2005. So priority dates, people with priority dates in September 2005, as of right now July, August 2023, their immigrant visas are becoming available. So you are in 2007, depending on which month you are, but you are in 2007, so you're roughly 2 years away from your priority date to become current. It might be a little bit less, it might be a little bit more, depending on which month you are in, but roughly 2 more years for the availability of the immigrant visa. Okay, let me post a response and we're gonna move on to the next question from user SY5KL6. Sorry, YouTube for some reason, no longer shows names here, but instead handles. I don't know why. Hello again, we are in the F1 category. My mother is filing for me and my siblings, and I put my son on it. When we checked the email, all applicants except my son said complete, and it said he needed to do his police report, and we're just now doing it. I hope that clears things up. Okay, I see. Yes, thank you for follow-up comment. You see, unfortunately, it's really hard for me to remember now which comment, especially when it's just showing the handles. But yes, I remember your initial comment now. Doing it, hope clear. How long will it take for us to be documentarily qualified, and when can we expect an interview? Okay, now it definitely makes sense. Okay, sorry you're dealing with this, and it is pretty much exactly the same situation that I had with whenever I was working on my parents' case, and for whatever reason I thought they're not gonna need one of the documents, and turned out they do. Even people in their 60s, they still do need to provide that stuff, which is crazy, but it is what it is. So it's the same thing for you. For a 15-year-old kid, they decided that they need a criminal record. I guess that maybe makes sense in somebody's head, but whatever. Let's not go there. They decided their bureaucracy is their rule, so we have to play by them. Unfortunately, if we want to succeed in this bureaucratic structure that they created. But most of the times, whenever you have, for me personally, it created about 6 months of a delay whenever I was, doing the documentary qualification with my parents. So about 3 months, you submit the documents, about 3 months for them to review it. Then obviously, you had to resubmit it, or, didn't submit it, and now you're submitting it again. So roughly, you're looking at about 3 months before they get to it and process it, and hopefully there's no problems there, and they just say, okay, good, documentarily qualified. Once you're documentarily qualified, though, once your son is documentarily qualified, December 2015, F1, Jamaica, that's all chargeability area. I'm pretty sure, yes, so it's January 2015 for F1, as of right now, for all chargeability, and you are December 2015. So let's see, January 15, December 2015. So you're roughly looking at about 10, 11 more months before the availability of the immigrant visa, before your priority date becomes current. So honestly, at the full scope of this, you're not even wasting any time at all, because if you were current right now and you had that back and forth because of the police certificate, then yes, we could say you're gonna waste a few months here waiting for them to review the police certificate. But honestly, because your priority date is not current yet, you're not wasting any time at all. So I wouldn't stress that much about it. I would just, hope that they review it and they accept it and they documentarily qualify, your son, and then that's it. No more worries about that. Then you're just waiting for the priority date to become current, and that's it. Once the interview is scheduled, good to go. But yes, as of right now, you're roughly looking about 10, 11 months. Okay, let me post the answer, and we're gonna move on to the next comment from Mayuja Sachin. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. You mentioned that if you are an immediate relative of the US citizen, you won't be constricted to the annual immigrant cap quota. Will immediate relative applicable to fiance K1? If not, is K1 visa capped or has annual limitation? Thank you for your answer. Mayuja, thank you very much for your question and your comment. Really appreciate it. So, the visa bulletin, and whenever it comes to cap on the immigrant visas, yes, they're specific to family preference category. Obviously employment based, but we don't mostly I don't talk about the employment based stuff on this channel. Mostly it's just a family based stuff. Whenever it comes to K1, it's a fiance visa. It's a whole separate division. I can say that. I'm not sure. I don't think there is any caps On the K1, there might be, but I don't think there are. But definitely, you're not dealing with a visa bulletin whatsoever whenever it comes to the K1. You are basically just dealing with going through fairly similar process. There is also the NVC involved there, National Visa Center. Why? Because K1, it's it's considered to be an immigrant visa. So well, prospective immigrant, let's just say that. But you are dealing with the NVC. You are going through a similar process, and you are going through the interview in the U.S. Embassy. But it's different compared to actual I-130 petition, where a person in your situation is going to be spouse already basically petitioning for you as a petitioner sponsor. So it's a little bit of a different process. So I'm gonna do my research, and I'll probably make a separate video on K1 visa. I don't think there are any caps on that because it's prospective, and because once you come into the United States with the future plans to get married, and once you do get married, then you are dealing with this whole I-130 process regardless, and then well, in your situation it's a US citizen, so you're not going to be dealing with a cap at all because it's a US citizen, and you are going to be in immediate relative category. Okay, so let me post a response here, and we're gonna move on to the next comment from Adarsh Asubedi 5945. So if the visa lot resets every October, is it that the F2A will be current in the October visa bulletin? Yeah, I wish that's how it worked, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that, because once it resets, the only thing that happens is just the new fiscal year starts, and now the backlog from the previous year transfers to the next year. So now there is 200,000 something. Let's take a look. Actually, I'll see. Let's see. 226,000 immigrant visas becomes available, but because they were already oversubscribed in the previous years, whoever is were waiting is now getting from that 226,000 lot. Right, depending on which family preference category, because for each family preference there is a designated number that is given. So that's why we do have the visa bulletin, because of that backlog that keeps on accumulating. So no, unfortunately, it's not going to become current, because there is that over subscription in the first place. There is a backlog that is from the previous year. Otherwise, the previous years that were waiting, they would just be kind of thrown out, or the new people who applied, they would be thrown out. Somebody would have to be basically thrown out of waiting if for this to become current immediately like that. Okay, moving further. Okay, so to Maya. So there's another comment. Hi, sorry for a very long question. No worries at all. I've got the approval notice for I-120 since May 12th, and approval will expire on 9/11. Per the approval notice I-797, I should get a welcome letter from NVC with the next set of instructions for the interview within 2-4 weeks. However, as of today, 7/15, we still haven't got anything. The approval will expire in less than 2 months. I try to find information on how to extend it, by the state website only says, yes, the I-129F petition is valid for 4 months. From the date of approval by USCIS, a consular officer can extend the validity of the petition if it expires before visa processing is completed. Do you know where or how I can file for I-129F extension? I followed up with NBC twice, and they acknowledged receiving my approved petition, but they haven't yet entered or worked on my case, even though their published timeframes website says they are working on cases received from USCIS on 8th June 23. Thank you so much for your time, sharing your thoughts and expertise on this. So Maya, thank you very much for clarifying this information. It definitely makes more sense now. So you are already dealing with the NVC, and yes, I've heard quite a few times already that this is one of the issues with NVC whenever it comes to prospective immigrant visas like K1. People are actually waiting longer than the basically approved time that is given on those applications for those visas. So since you already, because my recommendation would be, reach out to the NVC. Since you already did that, there's really not much that you can do. There is really no separate 129F extension that you need to file. Basically what will happen most likely in your situation is that NVC themselves, they will be extending because they are aware of the delay. The application package is in their hands, and that basically approval is given for an applicant, for the person that is applying for a visa to meet those, the time limitations. Whenever it comes to government agency being at fault, in this situation is NVC, National Visa Center, that is delaying the case, then you really don't need to worry about that. But I would still keep reaching out to them, and if you do get closer to the expiration of the approval, and you are getting pretty close, we're already July 15, 16, so we are, you have about less than 2 months now for that. So I would give it another month till the middle of August, and if nothing happens till the middle of August, I would definitely recommend for your fiance reaching out to an immigration attorney and actually having a conversation with them, because you might potentially need to be looking into some avenues where you need to resolve the problem and speed up the process, and that can involve reaching out to local elected officials, senators, congressmen, and asking them to reach out on your behalf to NVC and speeding up the situation, because you really don't want to put yourself in a position where you are now outside of that, approval window, just to be on the safe side. Again, most of the times, whenever it comes to the delays caused by, NVC especially, it's pretty normal. A lot of times it pushes very, very close when they do actually open up the portal. But, just to be on the safe side, you really don't want to kind of let it go out of your hands, and try to stay on top of it as much as possible. And if you have any questions along the way, definitely come back to this channel and I will be happy to address them. And that goes for everyone else who is asking comments today, and if you have any follow-up comments, let me know. I will be happy to answer. Just make sure that when you are submitting a follow-up question, follow-up comment, don't post it in my response under your comment, because then YouTube does not send me those notifications for whatever reason. So thank you very much everyone for tuning in today. Really appreciate your time as always. God bless, and I'll see you all in the next video.